If you click a Rubik's Cube, it makes this little noise. Every parent of a cuber will be very familiar with this. Imagine that multiplied by 600 times all at once in an enclosed space, and you get the sense of how much energy a cubing competition has. It can almost sound like a hurricane is taking place somewhere else in the building.
We have all racked our brains at least once in our youth trying to solve a Rubik's Cube. But the international sporting phenomenon that it has generated is less known among the general population. Be aware, though, that speedcubing is not only about solving the cube. The idea is rather to finish it in less than 10 seconds. Since the 1980s, speedcubing tournaments have been organized in Europe and Asia, but today, the phenomenon is expanding. In 2017, the biggest speedcubing world championship ever organized took place in Paris. More than 1,100 contestants from 70 different countries came to use their fingers and their heads during 4 days in order to know who would be the fastest. To organize a speedcubing championship, you need about 100 people in the organizing team, tables, cubes, lots of cubes, all kinds of cubes. The most famous of all, the classic 3x3, but also the 2x2, 4x4, 5x5, and different contests. Solo, in teams, one-handed, blindfolded, with the feet. In the end, there are more than 18 events in these Olympic Games of Rubik's Cube. And as in any proper championship, you need an audience, an atmosphere, some pressure, some speed, and most of all, champions elevated to the status of stars, who sign autographs, take photos, and give interviews.
Hi, my name is Matsuo.
Proper athletes who have been training for years to solve the cube in less than 6 seconds.
Quand on regarde une résolution de quelqu'un qui va très très vite, on peut se dire « Ah mais c'est en accéléré », alors qu'en fait non, quand on regarde le temps, il découle vraiment seconde par seconde. Pour les meilleurs mondiaux, on tombe sur du 15 ou 20 mouvements par seconde.
The speed, definitely makes it sporting. In a lot of ways, I think the world of speedcubing is like the world of track and field, only with your hands, although sometimes with your feet. It's a world unto itself, and I think simply the fact that people take it so seriously means that it should be taken seriously.
And yet, it all started with the simple toy invented in the 1970s by Erno Rubik.
3 weeks ago, Judge Smith retired to her chambers with Exhibit A, Rubik's Cube. She hasn't been seen since. Rubik's Cube, over 3 billion combinations, but just one solution from ideal.
Behind this cube is a Hungarian design professor. When he invented the Rubik's Cube, he was not sure his invention was solvable. At first, he wanted to create a 3-dimensional object to make his students think. Passionate about puzzles, he ended up solving his own game after a month of research and persistence.
He didn't realize it was a puzzle at first. He created an object that was an impossible object in that if you remove the stickers, what you have is a cube that you can infinitely manipulate, but it never ceases to be a cube, which seems like a paradox.
Since its creation, the multicolored cube has sold 400 million copies, becoming the best-selling toy in the world, a symbol of intellectual feat, an object deeply set in pop culture, and a frustrating, very frustrating puzzle. At least 1 in 5 people have tried their hands at solving it.
The cube is an incredibly complex device. There are more permutations of a single Rubik's Cube than there are cells in the human body, many, many more.
To be exact, the cube represents 43.2 quintillion possible combinations. If we were to line up cubes with a different combination each, it would amount to a distance of 261 light years. We might as well say that solving this puzzle by sheer luck is impossible. Is the cube just a puzzle for geeks, a mathematical object for gifted people? Maybe. But every year the enthusiasm for it grows, and the number of speedcubers increases in the entire world. The cube world has become an open source community where everyone can share their tips and tricks to get better at it.
Et là. Là, tu peux daber.
Tout simplement, il y a quelques années, quand on voulait apprendre à le faire, il fallait acheter un livre, et en photo, c'est très compliqué. Donc il y a peu de monde qui se lançait il y a longtemps. Et avec l'essor de YouTube, on va tout de suite avoir accès à des tutoriels qui permettent d'aller plus vite.
It's one thing to post times online that you did or post them on YouTube, But the communal aspect of speedcubing is what keeps people coming back, to know other people like them, to enlarge your circle. The cube brings people together in a way that very few objects can.
But before knowing how to solve a Rubik's Cube, one needs to know how to take care of it.
Bonjour et bienvenue à tous dans cette vidéo dans laquelle on va voir comment nettoyer son cube, le lubrifier et ensuite le régler.
Not only are there specific cubes designed to improve the fluidity of the rotation mechanism, but some cubists lubricate their cube with silicone oil. By the way, how does a cube rotate?
On enlève les coins, les pièces ici, on peut tout enlever et on arrive à un résultat. En fait, c'est juste l'intersection de 6 liaisons pivots, 6 pivots simples.
It turns out the mechanism is not as complicated as it seems, but is it as simple to solve?
La première étape serait par exemple de construire une croix. Pour, par exemple la face blanche, on aurait 4 arêtes à positionner sur la face blanche. Ensuite on va essayer de mémoriser des petites séquences de mouvements qui vont faire par exemple 7 ou 8 mouvements pour les plus longues et ça va être du 6 mouvements pour les plus courtes qui vont permettre de finir le cube en quelques étapes.
According to Victor, it's almost child's play. However, solving it in less than 10 seconds must not be within everyone's reach.
At the end of the day, there's two people in life, right? There's the kind of people who solve a cube and say, I solved it, great, I can move on. But then there's the other people who become speedcubers, who solve the cube, and they sort of have that little question like, well, maybe I could do it a little faster. And that's a cycle that never ends, because once you realize you can get faster, you're never going to have a perfect solve.
J'ai fait 10 secondes tout pile de moyenne.
My PV at home is 7.83.
Oh, general is 4.44, but officially it's 5.37.
But how do we time something to the 100th of a second? The competitor examines his cube for 15 seconds, a key moment to anticipate his first move. Then he puts his hands on a touch-sensitive stopwatch.
Quand on met nos deux mains, ça allume la lumière verte. Quand on retire une main, le chronomètre part. Et donc du coup, quand le compétiteur met sa deuxième main, ça arrête le chronomètre.
Ready, set, go!
The speedcuber starts and stops his own times under the watchful eye of a judge. Sometimes it goes so fast that there's a bug with the timer.
That's ultimately what makes cubing, I think, a sporting activity, is that it's physical and mental, because you are doing something that's extremely quick. It's almost like playing chess at the speed of table tennis. You're reacting extremely quickly, but you're also thinking very logically. And it has this interesting effect where, like, the fastest solves feel the slowest. So anyone who's seen the movie The Matrix, where Keanu Reeves dodges bullets like this, and to everyone else it appears in the blink of an eye, one of the paradoxes of cubing is that the faster you go, the slower it feels. And the reason I think it feels so slow is you're so keyed into every moment that when you're doing it, it feels almost leisurely, where you're sort of like, well, I could move this piece here, but if I do that, it'll cause this thing to happen, and that's not so great, so maybe I should do this instead. It even gets to the point that you can mess up in the middle of a solve and think about what you should have done, and maybe should you go back and do it again and change it, or is it better to just keep going and sort of like commit to the bad decision? And you can still get a good solve, because all of that's happening so quickly that to the outside person, it looks like you're having a seizure below the wrists, but to you, it's like this entire narrative in your head.
The world's best speedcubers are able to do between 15 to 20 movements per second. To achieve such performances, they need to work on their dexterity, their hands' agility, the famous finger tricks.
Quand on dit qu'on a de bons finger tricks, c'est qu'on arrive à faire des formules avec le plus possible de mouvements par seconde. Un des exercices qui est le plus connu, en tout cas quand on débute dans les finger tricks, ce serait de faire donc monter la colonne à droite, ensuite tourner vers la gauche avec l'index de la main droite, puis inverser ces deux mouvements, donc descendre et tourner à droite. Et donc on fait ça avec la main droite qui tient le cube de cette façon, et on va essayer de tourner la face du haut avec les index. Et donc c'est ça qui est très important, ce qui fait qu'on va essayer de faire ça le plus rapidement possible, et quand on aura beaucoup d'entraînement, on va arriver à le faire très rapidement, et on va pouvoir monter vers du 15-16 mouvements par seconde.
I think it took me about 10,000 solves in total to get to under 20 seconds. Mats Valk, one of the best cubers in the world, once said to me he estimated he solved the cube about 1 million times, give or take. So that means that I would have to do about 990,000 more solves.
3, 2, 1. Everyone can get to the 15 seconds mark if they train hard enough. However, regarding the world's top 5, all the speedcubers agree on the fact that they have a little something extra.
I'm Matsvak. I'm 21 years old from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. I've been cubing for 10 years, and last November I broke the Rubik's Cube world record with a time of 4.74 seconds.
Hi, my name's Felix Zemdegs. I'm 21 years old from Melbourne, Australia, and I broke his record with a time of 4.73 seconds in December last year.
These two young players are the Cube superstars in their field. They have their own fans, their sponsors, and have competed together in hundreds of tournaments across the world. Now friends, they are among the most skilled speedcubers in history, each with his own style.
Okay, what's Mats's style? Most of the time Mats has very clean turning, so he doesn't lock up very much. His turning's quite fast, sometimes pauses a little bit, but he's pretty good.
Thanks. So Felix is color neutral. That means he can start on any color of the Rubik's Cube. Like a cube is symmetric, so it should be that case. It looks like he's locking up a lot, but for some reason he doesn't. And besides that, he's just very fast. He's an all-rounder, as in he's good in many like variants of the Rubik's Cube. And he's a good guy.
Thanks, sir.
No matter your number in the rankings, all the speedcubers will tell you that the most difficult thing during a tournament is to manage to remain calm.
Parce que j'ai regardé le timer, donc du coup ça m'a stressé, mes mains ils ont tremblé. Et ça aurait pu être un 8 secondes, moins de 8 secondes 50, mais voilà, j'ai paniqué.
Some people have talked about having some sort of pre-solve routine, something you do before each solve, like wipe your hands or take a deep breath or some particular moves on a different cube or something like that. I do that a little bit, but I don't really think about it very much. I just kind of get up there and make sure that I'm ready and calm and then start my solve, basically.
So that's probably the biggest challenge is your nerves. Because when you're solving a cube, you need to be able to move as smoothly as possible, because in the worst case scenario, the pieces catch and your cube could explode, and the rules allow you to put it back together, but it counts for the time, so you're not in a great position then.
Many people would have quit in a similar situation. Only 15 at the time, young Felix Zemdegs did not give up, did not get discouraged, and got back on track to the amazement of his judge. This phenomenon is now 22 and keeps getting better. But in this discipline where the average age is under 20, he's almost considered a veteran. The new generation is not far behind, and every speedcuber dreams of his track record. In the last World's Championship, specifically during the star event, the 3x3, new talents came to light and shook up the established order. In each round and for each event, the competitors undertake 5 solvings, but there is no room for a stroke of luck since the best and worst times are not taken into account. The average time is then calculated based on the 3 remaining times. At only 15, Max Park surprises everyone and becomes the Rubik's Cube World Champion in 3x3 with an average time of 6.85 seconds and a best time of 5.87. Felix ends up 4th, and Max is 8th in the rankings.
What up, Max? World champion, Max.
Yeah. And one-handed. What happened? That was amazing. That was amazing. You're world champion.
Felix and Max have been overthrown by an atypical champion.
Max, when he was 2 years old, he was diagnosed with autism. It was considered about medium autism to high-level autism. He was not speaking much. He wasn't making eye contact. He was not communicating with people, including his mother and father, both of us.
Until he was 10 years old, it was almost impossible for Max to open a water bottle by himself. One day, when he was in a fast food restaurant with his family, Max discovered the Rubik's Cube in a Happy Meal. He immediately took the toy and understood its mechanism. The playful object then became a major therapeutic tool, but most of all, an opportunity to fully fit in a community.
1, 2,
I think he thinks differently with cubing. I think a lot of people look at a Rubik's Cube, and I know that there's something like 34 billion or million or billion solutions, and Max doesn't see it that way. He sees it as it's finite. There's this much, no more. With that, it makes it, for him, completable. It's only this much.
Exceptional champions for an exceptional sport. From a pop culture object in the 1970s to the sport today, the discipline has evolved but still needs recognition. Every week or so, an official tournament takes place somewhere in the world. With contracts, sponsors, and salaries, speedcubing is turning professional.
Peut-être que d'ici quelques années, on peut en entendre parler, tout comme le e-gaming, tout comme les échecs.
Like cubing is growing over the last few years, like exponentially. I think it's very good. Also, there's more money involved. There's more like people getting sponsored, more innovation.
So cubers have brands, cubers have social media, cubers have been on television shows, commercials.
So yeah, I would say that he would be a professional cuber. I mean, he's a student still. He's 15 years old, so he still has to go to school and study, but Cube gave us a future.